If only dogs could talk to us and tell us how they truly feel about this whole man's best friend setup. If so, where would the words come from, and how would it translate to us humans? Would it be like gobbledygook? Suffice it to say, our beloved canines would rather we be more in touch, and here's one reason why. So once upon a time, in a charming suburban neighborhood, a litter of adorable puppies was born. Among them was a fluffy golden retriever pup with bright eyes and a heart full of curiosity. The wealthy Thompson family happened to stumble upon this cute little pup at a local breeder's place, and they decided it would be the perfect birthday gift for their 9-year-old son Alex. At first, everything seemed perfect. The young boy, Alex, was thrilled to have a puppy to play with and call his own. He named the dog Buddy and spent hours running around the large backyard, playing fetch and teaching the pup tricks. Buddy adored Alex, always wagging his tail and seeking his attention. However, as the years passed, the Thompson family started to realize that Alex wasn't as responsible as they'd hoped. Instead of taking care of Buddy, he became increasingly abusive and negligent towards the dog. Being the spoiled brat he was, he would forget to feed Buddy, leave him outside in extreme weather, sometimes even raise his hand in anger at the poor dog. Consequently, Buddy's vivacious spirit began to fade. He longed for love and care. Again, if only Buddy had a voice. It might have been easier for everyone going forward. At some point, when it was crystal clear that Alex had outgrown Buddy and moved on to other interests, the Thompsons decided to get rid of the dog. They sent him off to a shelter, and it was the least they could do in the hopes that someone else might be able to give him a better life. At the shelter, Buddy felt lonely and abandoned. If being amongst other lonely and abandoned animals could be categorized as such, first and foremost, animals and pets had the company of themselves, which ideally would have been enough to sustain them socially. But at the same time, pets were wired by nature to be companions to human subjects. As such, a pet like a Buddy would never feel complete without an owner. Talk about getting the short end of the stick, eh? So fate, or Mother Nature if you like, had prepared something different in store for him. A gentle elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, who lived alone, visited the shelter looking for a companion. Her kind eyes met Buddy's, and the connection was instant. She took Buddy home, hoping for a faithful companion to spend her slow days with. However, especially with the emphasis on slowness, Mrs. Patterson's mind and body was in the twilight stages. She was steadily slipping into the fog of senility. She would occasionally forget to feed Buddy and often ignored him entirely. Every now and then, some members of Mrs. Patterson's extended family would swing by. Her married son was especially approving of Buddy, but as for her daughter-in-law, not so much. Mrs. Patterson also had 2 teenage grandchildren. They more or less towed the line of their mother, so Buddy hated it when they came around. Again, if only he had the ability to speak up. Otherwise, all he was left with were his variations of barks. To be sure, Buddy tried his best to stay patient and understanding, but deep inside, he yearned for some reciprocal love and attention. So one day, while the door was left ajar, Buddy decided it was time to find a new life. So he just simply up and left. For the first few hours to days, he roamed the streets, unsure of where to go. During that time, he survived on scraps and sheltered in abandoned corners. His once golden fur began to look dusty and unkempt, but his spirit remained resilient. At first, Buddy found himself thrust into a world that was both exciting and terrifying. It's like that feeling a young adult gets when he or she gains some level of independence and is left to fend for themselves. And, as a once pampered pet, the streets were a stark contrast to the comfort and luxury he had known before now. He was no longer fed on schedule, and there were no cozy beds or toys to play with. Instead, he had to rely on his instincts and survival skills to navigate this new life. The first lesson Buddy quickly learned was that food was scarce, and he had to scavenge for scraps wherever he could find them. He would search through trash cans, beg for food from kind strangers with a sorry dog face, and even chase after pigeons in the park, hoping to catch a quick meal. As he wandered the streets, Buddy encountered many other stray dogs, each with their own stories of hardship and resilience. Some were friendly and welcomed him into their makeshift packs, while others were territorial and chased him away. Buddy learned the importance of reading body language and using his instincts to avoid conflicts. To be sure, even animal relationships could be complicated too. Loneliness was a constant fixture for Buddy during those days on the streets. He began to miss the companionship he once had with Alex and Mrs. Patterson, even if those were somewhat negative. At night, he would curl up in a quiet corner, dreaming of the comfort he once knew. However, despite the challenges, Buddy discovered a newfound sense of freedom in his street life, and it helped that Buddy's friendly and approachable demeanor caught the attention of some compassionate souls. Good Samaritans would usually leave bowls of water and scraps for him, and he would wag his tail in gratitude, making brief connections with the kind-hearted people who showed him a little compassion. And as his luck would have it, there was even more goodness in store. One fateful day, animal rangers noticed Buddy wandering the streets. As was in their nature, they could sense he was once a well-cared-for dog and decided to bring him to a shelter. Despite his rough appearance, Buddy's gentle and trusting nature shone through. He quickly won the hearts of the shelter staff. It was during this time at the shelter that Buddy got a second chance at life. A compassionate trainer named Sarah recognized his potential as a guide dog for the blind, and his journey to becoming a service dog began. With love, patience, and training, Buddy transformed from a street-smart survivor to a devoted and skilled guide dog, ready to help those in need. Under Sarah's patient guidance and training, Buddy became an exceptional guide dog for the blind. He learned to read and protect his visually impaired companions, bringing them a sense of independence and security they had never known before. And Buddy's experiences on the streets had given him a unique perspective on life. He carried the memories of hardship and resilience with him. But in all of that, he never lost his heart to any bitterness or resentment. It wouldn't be long now before Buddy got his wish. So one day, as fate would have it, Buddy was paired with a woman named Emily, whose world had been recently shattered by blindness. Emily had been struggling to come to terms with her condition, but Buddy's arrival brought a glimmer of hope to her life. Emily was also a mother whose maternal days were more or less behind her. Her kids were grown now, and she presently lived with her husband. Sadly, the loss of her eyesight was hereditary. But as time went by, Emily and Buddy formed a unique bond. He guided her through bustling streets, helped her navigate busy intersections, and was always there to offer comfort during difficult moments. However, Emily's emotional wounds were deep, and she found it hard to connect with Buddy on a deeper level. However, Buddy tried his best to be patient and understanding, giving Emily all the time she needed. He found solace in knowing that he was making her life better in practical ways, even if the emotional connection wasn't as strong. So, Buddy's journey continued, just as it had ultimately led him to Emily's doorstep. Slowly but surely, they went on to form a bond that transcended the boundaries of words and sight. Thus, Buddy finally found the peace and sense of purpose he had longed for since the day he left the sheltered life of the Thompson family, and all through living with Mrs. Patterson up until his life on the streets. Buddy was finally home, after having lived with 3 different families in his lifetime. More significantly, through it all, he remained a loyal companion, bringing light and love wherever he went. And Emily was poised in such a way as to be at the receiving end of all of the love Buddy had to offer. Once again, if only dogs could express their feelings.